are finally about to talk about a topic that is truly my favorite thing to talk about, and it is figure drawing. If you take a look at my Instagram, you'll see from my very first post, shameless plug by the way, go follow my Instagram. You'll see that the very first post have been of me trying to do figure drawings and practicing figure drawings. I'm obsessed with it and I've been obsessed with it. I am making these videos in hopes that for whoever's watching, one, I don't want you to have to take 10 years to finally be able to make a decent figure drawing. I've made those mistakes and honestly still make those mistakes sometimes, and I know just how to fix them a lot more. That being said, this is truly a way for me to help that 15-year-old version of myself not make those mistakes that I know he's going to make. And secondly, I want to solidify this stuff in my head, genuinely. I want to be able to understand the theory and apply it to the craft. So I found the best way to do that is to teach. Teaching, it forces you to understand what you're talking about. If I try to teach it and it doesn't work out, it'll be clear as day. So I've been studying a lot, trying to make sure that whatever I'm saying, it genuinely makes sense and it's actually going to work. One last thing, I also titled this Understanding Anatomy because I already know that's the word that's gonna get the clicks. And I know that sucks, but this series is much, much more than just studying anatomy. This series is all about understanding the figure. That includes anatomy, its gesture, its shape, its silhouette, its proportions. It's all of these things that fit into the term figure drawing. Throughout this video, we will talk about how to set up a figure drawing, how to study it correctly, and how to apply everything we've learned to a drawing. I call these 3 steps knowing what to say, knowing how to say it, and knowing when to say it. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the good stuff, man. Enough talking. Let's get into it. The first major thing that I don't think most people take into account when figure drawing is that your reference image really matters, especially when we are just starting out and trying to understand these things. The wrong reference image could outright misinform you. And as a person who's trying to interpret what the reference image is saying, references with good lighting, preferably like direct sunlight or just one light source, is the best option. I recommend looking on Pinterest or Instagram to find some really good references for free. I'd actually recommend using photographers' Instagram pages where they set up most of the composition for you, so all you really have to do is focus on applying theory. Pages like Earth's World and Daniel Mertag are some good choices, for instance. Since I knew I was going to do an anatomy study, I looked for an image that showed anatomy the best. And in my opinion, very muscular people are the best way to study anatomy. So I went with this image right here of Arnold Schwarzenegger. The lighting is ideal, the values are separated, and the major plane changes are extremely obvious. It was an easy pick. Once we got our reference images here, the one big thing that I did that set me back years, it was going in and just drawing. Trying to get every line, every hair strand, every muscle. Or I just look at one body part and just draw that because I knew I wouldn't be able to get the full body accurately. If we are just starting out, what we need to do is understand what we want to say. So that's what I do here. I take a look at this image and I think to myself, how do I interpret what this image is telling me? It's saying the head is looking directly at the camera while the torso is facing a 3/4 view, as well as the pelvis. I could go on and on, but the gist is figuring out what to say by first looking at the pose and understanding what it's conveying. If it's in a contrapposto pose, you would see the weight on one leg mostly as compared to the other one where that's just relaxed. The shoulders may be tilted, little things like that. If you can capture those little things right there, actually I would argue those are the major things. If you can capture those major things in the beginning of drawing, it sets you up for the entire study. I'd have this really bad habit of copying every single line and then comparing it to itself. So I would go like this, and then go like this, and then go like this, and try to get especially right here, I would over exaggerate this and then go like this, and then try to compare it. And then when I would draw it too, like I would do the same things, and I would look at this image, I would look at what I'm drawing, and then I would look at the image and say to myself, okay, so this is this long, so it must be this long right here. And then I'd erase it and then try to make this the same length as this on the image. That is a terrible way of trying to get a drawing down. When I say get the full image, getting the full scope, I mean doing trying to envelop this whole image into one thing, this whole being into one big thing like this. I'm pretty sure you people have seen it before. It's called the envelope technique. And then start breaking down the inner shapes. This is so much easier to do and so much more effective to do than the alternative route. So to get back to this image, I'm keeping in mind that I don't want the silhouette to be too detailed. I want it to be fairly simple so that the shapes read clearly. I can put all the extra detail inside the silhouette. The only thing I'm comparing is the relationship from one body part to the next. This is extremely important if you want things to look cohesive. By cohesive, I mean relating every single body part like this. Where can I make this protrude right here, right? I see that neck kind of lines up with the back of his glutes. I see that this deltoid lines up like this, right? I see that, this arm has a nice rhythm into this leg right here. What else could I do? I see this has this sort of rhythm right here. I'm just looking for rhythms that can make things look a lot more organic. So now that I'm finally feeling better about my silhouette, I can start making every prediction I've made solidified. I do that by darkening the silhouette and adding small notes of contour lines to remind me what angle everything is turning in. I'm not thinking about anatomy yet. At the moment, I'm constantly asking myself, what shape is this image relaying to me, and how can I relay that in my image? Once that is set in stone, the inside of the image can start to tell its own story. I use the center line of the image and begin comparing each side to each other so that the shape fits the perspective and the bigger picture. The reason I'm able to tell what the muscle is doing at the moment without delving deep into the anatomy is because I'm using the shadow shapes as my guide. Any questions I may have about what's going on inside the silhouette can be answered by the shadow shapes. I use all of this to help me figure out what I want to say to my viewer. My next step is knowing how to say it. At this point, everything that I've wanted to say about this drawing has already been said. A good way to know that you've said everything you need to say is if you show anyone your work and they're able to tell you exactly what's going on, you've pretty much done your job. The next step is knowing how to say it. This may be the most fun part for me because I genuinely love learning new things about the human body and how to portray it. So this is where all the anatomy studies happen. Get your anatomy books, Pinterest reference, and create a new layer, or if you're a traditional artist, a new sheet of tracing paper, and start to do an anatomy tracing. I'd lower the opacity and begin to draw the skeleton first and then add the muscles onto it. Sadly, I don't have that part of the video because the Procreate file just keeps on crashing. I guess it's way too large, but I'll be making a separate video on how to do it regardless. As you can see, I've separated the hand and gave it its own study. I do this for every part of the body that I lack knowledge on. I simplify it down to its most basic forms and build it up again. One crucial aspect in doing this is grabbing reference from other artists who have done it before. This is what I mean by knowing how to say it. There's a lot of times where I'll study something that I don't understand on the side and still won't be able to draw it because even though I know what to say, I don't know how to convey it on a sheet of paper. That's where other artists come into play. Looking over my favorite artists and seeing exactly how they are conveying the things I can't usually answers any questions that I may have. I plan to do a full separate video on that as well. With all of those questions beginning to get answered, I start to shade. Here's one of the biggest mistakes we make as artists when it comes to shading. We get into this mode where we see a value and we try to copy it. We see it's dark one place, so in the drawing we make it dark. We see it's light in one place, so in the drawing we make it light. This is a really bad way to go about doing any shading because photos lie. We have to look at what we've already said and make the decision to shade the shapes that we've already created. The only thing the reference image is there for is to help answer what shape and what's happening, not what value. Think about it like this. We shade the shapes that we've already drawn. We aren't copying the image. We are relaying what's happening in the image to the viewer on a sheet of paper. To do that, we have to almost completely ignore the image itself and see what we've drawn for what it is. This is where we slow down and take a deep breath. I recommend taking a break from looking at the drawing for at least a day. Come back with fresh new eyes and see any mistakes that you may have missed before. I usually do this because once I start shading, it's really hard to fix the mistakes that you will inevitably run into. With everything finished, the last and most subjective part of our journey is knowing when to say it. This is completely subjective, honestly, but for me, I think it makes the biggest difference. This is the part where we make creative decisions, where we go the Patrick Byron's route and make the outline bold while having minimal value changes inside the silhouette. Or maybe we can go the Stephen Bauman route and slightly emphasize reality to make the forms pop off the page. The whole goal of knowing when to say something is to understand that now you're not in the phase of studying anymore. This is where all the big ideas start to jump out on the page. Here, I'm emphasizing the torso because that's what I want everybody to focus on. I tried to go as bold as possible with the darks and as smooth a transition in the halftones because that's where I want people's eye to rest. Although the face may have some detail in it, the contrast isn't jarring, so it doesn't really hold your attention. Even the legs, I don't really focus on them because it doesn't warrant that much attention to me. I didn't finish the whole thing for the video because that would take forever and I wanted to get this video out. But if you want to see me finish it, I stream at least 3 times a week on this YouTube channel. Sundays are the most consistent. I stream every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The other days through the week is very sporadic because I go stream based on my work schedule. But if you do want to make those streams, I announce those streams every time I do on my Instagram page. If you have any questions or want me to elaborate even more, hop in the stream and I'll be more than willing to answer the questions. All that being said, the last chapter of this video is really subjective, and I find the best way to make those decisions is by studying how other artists do these things. I spent way too long thinking I have all the answers. Don't make the same mistakes I've made when it comes to learning how to draw. But at the end of the day, just have fun. This stuff is just the stuff that I love to talk about. It's just nice tips and tricks to make the work that you want to create pop out just a little bit more. You don't have to do this stuff and you still be able to create a beautiful drawing. All we are doing is putting pencil to paper at the end of the day, so please take it easy on yourself. Just because you don't get to finish this stuff within a day or you don't understand it in a day or a week or even a month, it's okay. It's not that deep. You'll figure it out. Just give yourself the time to figure it out. Do not give up. I promise. It will work out, trust me. And that's the beauty of this. You take your time to find out what you like about the drawing and just emphasize that. Don't overthink it. With all that being said, thank you all for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in the live streams. And this is the part where I tell you to comment, like, subscribe, because that's what YouTubers do. So if you want to take the time to...
Can't wait for our day to ball, this is a layup. Nobody ever said this would be easy, but trust when I say that you got it. I know you've been looking for a breakthrough, trying our best to make do. Every day is something new, but change gon' come, oh yes it's true. Brighter days are straight ahead. Follow me, won't be misled. Just look up, don't hang your head, and we'll get to the promised land. Somebody loves you, please don't forget such. Take your time, no need to feel rushed. We gon' shine somehow one day. Word to O'Shea, today's been a